All right, what's up, folks?
And
This is going to be an open hangout, atheist versus theist discussion too. This is going to be a continuation of a hangout we had on True Empiricism's channel. So, whatever you're hearing right now is a continuation from the previous hangout. So,
yeah.
have at it, boys.
All right. Yeah, and I only have about 10 or 12 minutes before I have to do something, but I'll be on later on tonight. Yeah. So the problem with what was his name again?
Multiple personality.
Multiple is that he didn't understand some of these issues.
No, okay. I understand totally where you're coming from philosophy point.
Okay, so if God wasn't immutable in terms of his nature, then that means everything could change, and that would even including his mind and the laws of logic. So it's actually illogical to argue that omnipotence would necessarily entail that God's nature can change, because if God's nature can change, then that means that the laws of logic could change.
I mean, there's one thing, again, sorry, Antonio, I'm afraid you've got no atheists in the room now, so I'll just destroy that concept.
By the way, your avatar is cool. It's very, I like that.
Were you talking to Druss or me?
No, talking about Druss.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yours is. It's okay. I'm just not really into anime.
It's all good. I understand.
Yeah, it originally came. It was a picture off a game called Rune from about 1996, and I've had it as my avatar. As my backdrop avatar. It's kind of common across all the devices I use. Has been for years. Because that's just how I roll. I'm a bit OCD when it comes to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think from a philosophical perspective, I think if I'm going to just sort of do a subtle sort of critique, and this is not meant as confrontational, because you may notice I'm not a very confrontational person unless you catch me when I'm very tired, and then I'm horrible. I lack patience at those moments.
It's okay. We're cool with you.
But yeah, I mean, I think the slight critique is, I mean, I come from the fact that there is what I can demonstrate in the real world, which comes from things like observation, science, testing reality, etc. And there's a difference between that and my faith. I would never seek to prove beyond absolute doubt to anyone that what I believe is what they should believe. And I think that there's a lot of humility in the belief structure that I have that comes from what I've inherited through the family that I belong to.
What's your worldview?
I'm a pagan. To be simple, it's more complicated.
Okay. Since you're a pagan, you said that there are some things that you can demonstrate to be the case, right?
No, I said I know there's some things that I know to be absolutely true. There's a difference.
You know something that's absolutely true?
Yeah.
What?
To me, my God exists. My goddess exists.
And how would you know that?
Because it's been told to me in a way that I cannot be wrong.
Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to parody the Christian position, right?
No, it's not a parody at all. It's the position of faith.
Okay.
Faith denies doubt. Does it not?
Okay. Good. Okay. Good. Is your God omniscient and omnipotent?
I don't put constraints upon my God.
I didn't ask you to put constraint. I said, is he?
No, it's she.
She. Is she omnipotent and omniscient?
As I say, I don't put constraints or definitions upon my goddess.
Well, then do you know that they're omnipotent or omniscient?
It doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter, because if you
matters to you.
Okay, is your God, is she a contingent or non-contingent entity?
You'd have to find what you mean by that.
Well, contingent would mean that, like, for example, your God is dependent upon something else for existence, or your God is non-contingent.
No, she's the source of all existence in my worldview.
Oh, okay.
Including the birth of other gods.
Okay, good. Okay, so now you still haven't answered whether you know that your God is omnipotent or omniscient, right?
Mm-hmm. I know that.
Okay, well then, if your God, you don't know whether your God is omniscient or not.
I didn't say that.
Do you know?
I said it doesn't matter.
I say it does.
That's your opinion. So that's where we stop.
That's right. Well, if your God is omniscient,
I don't defend my faith. I don't need to.
I'm not asking you to defend your. I'm not asking you to defend it. I'm asking
you.
Me no.
You're
I'm not
to make
asking
a judgment
you.
Call
No, I'm not. I'm trying to ascertain what are the attributes of your God. I didn't ask you to prove it. I just want to know what the attributes of your God is that would logically necessitate that you can know something in such a way that you cannot be wrong.
And it's not something normally I'd.
I mean, if it seems to me what you're doing is you're doing classically what a lot of skeptics do, where they will, because they know they can't defend their skepticism.
I'm not trying to defend my skepticism.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm not a skeptic. I have no skepticism. I don't have a problem. Oh gosh, sorry. I don't have a problem with the Christian faith per se. I can't say I agree with it, all its sort of some of its moral positions, but
I can't hear anything at the moment. Hold on.
Oh. Testing 1 2 3. Anyway, I'll keep the short to point. I mean, I don't come here to be confrontational and try and put my beliefs up against somebody else's, because that's not what I do. I come here to listen, to try and understand sort of your points of view.
But you did disagree, or you seem to have disagreed in the previous Hangout, that there was a or agreed rather that there's a contradiction with God being both omniscient and omnipotent.
No, you weren't listening, Veckel. I was actually making a statement on the intrinsic meaning of the words, not in the way that were being applied in the Christian worldview, and I was very, very clear on that. Because I understand from your worldview that you do have the fact that God has the power that comports to his nature.
Yeah, I have to run here.
I have to too, because it's getting very late.
The bottom line is this: if you're going to tell us that you can determine that something is the case, then you're going to have to argue that your God is omniscient, omnipotent, and always truth revealing. Okay?
No, you see, because I have a
choice. In the absence, if your God does not have those attributes, then you can't even begin to lay hold to a claim that you can know something in such a way that you cannot be wrong. Because let's say your God is omnipotent but not omniscient. That God could construct you in such a way, but since that God is not omniscient, doesn't necessarily entail that you know something in such a way that you cannot be wrong, or vice versa. So there are some necessary preconditions or attributes that have to be in existence and in creation. You also have to have that God. Let's say your God was not omnipotent, then it wouldn't necessarily entail that the world could be constructed in such a way that the laws of logic are universal and that your sense perceptions are reliable and so on and so forth. So whenever somebody tries to do a parody of the Christian faith because they can't really defend skepticism, it really doesn't end very well. And if you're sincere in defending some pagan view, that usually doesn't end well too. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, though, Veckel, that material, the biggest problem was not that he disagreed, he just simply didn't understand some of these issues.
Yeah,
And
that,
I'll make a closing statement before I duck out quickly, because as I say, it's getting very late here.
Yeah, I have to pick up a relative.
No, I understand. I need to get yourself out, Dawkins. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, this has been quite an interesting conversation, but I kind of disagree quite fundamentally. I mean, you attribute things like the laws of logic to God. You contribute things that, you know, everything that contains within existence. And if God creates the universe, which is what I believe, then I can see that perspective coming through, and I can understand your perspective of that point. What you can't expect is someone that does not share your faith to accept your position. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not accepting your position. You know, and I could go into trivialities and argue minutiae, which is, let's face it, really boring, because we just end up spending an hour talking about the word omnipotence. When I think really what we should be doing, and one of the things I think that's been very nice in this debate today, is that it's generally been good-natured. And I think that is a huge step forward. I think the more good nature, you know, we're about how we treat each other as humans. You know, we are all human, well, except for Dragonite. You know, he's a Pokemon master. You know, but you know, we are all human, and we are all entitled to a level of respect. There are some people that are very knowledgeable on certain subjects and very ignorant on others. And this should be about the curve of learning. And it's one of the things that, from, you know, my outside view of the Christian doctrine, I've always liked the fact that there has been a strong emphasis on learning and scholarship. And I think that's a good thing. But I think also we need to understand how we treat others in that respect, and we treat everybody with a level of respect. And any time that I don't do that, you can pull me up on it, because I said it here.
All right, appreciate your closing statements, man. Thanks for coming by.
And I shall bid everyone a nice afternoon in the US and a good night in the UK.
Have a good night, man.
Letters.
So we have some new people in here. We have Dragnot and we have Jim. Just real quick, by the way, Dragnot, I got to tell you, man, you look like one of my really, really good friends. About 2 years ago or so, he moved to California to pursue voice acting. So you remind me a lot of what he looks like, man. But so from what I understand, you've been waiting to get at me for some time. So what do you want to talk about, man?
I mean, just to holler at you, just in general.
Oh, it's all good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the blog, because one of the things that because I didn't even know you had a blog, and I wanted to discuss some of the points you made on the blog, but my little video was going over the fact that there wasn't much there to talk about, and that was supposed to be the kind of the theme of that. I'm not sure if that got lost in translation or what.
Right.
But no, it's actually nice to see you, I guess, on your own channel, and I also was curious as to, you know, I guess you don't want to go on Steve's channel at any given time?
I mean, that would all depend, man. I just don't think he's just open to discussion on a certain level, because I mean he sees people like Vecco here and True here as the Clown Car Posse, and I really have like very little respect for that. And he constantly threw me up into the mix where my name didn't belong. When he had issues with True Empiricism, my name kept being thrown into the middle just because I was going to his Hangout. So
well, perhaps
that's all about it.
No, I understand. I mean, if you feel that he's mislabeled you, then that would be something. That's kind of why he hosts that Hangout. I'll go in there. I'll call him out myself. You know, even though I'm, according to G-Man, like the co-founder of Talking Shit Tuesday, if there's a problem, there's a little known fact about certain Hangouts. My Hangouts and Steve's Hangouts in particular. If we bring up your name, you automatically get a spot, no matter who's in there. So if I've said something that somebody wants to call me out on, then you automatically get a voice there over everyone else.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, if that is something that you want to pursue with him, and just kind of, at the beginning of another one of his hangouts, is y'all two kind of talk that out, and then kind of invite other people in,
Yeah.
maybe y'all can set that up. But I mean, like I said, that's between y'all.
Yeah, I feel you. That's fair enough, man.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, man.
I'd like to talk with Drag if I can. Drag, I saw part of your video. I didn't watch your full video, talking about basically how I was basically, I don't know exactly how you put it, how I was doubling down in some way towards the video that actually Steve put up on this issue of this the electron transport chain. Do you understand exactly what the cytochrome dioxide does, right?
I have never heard of that thing in my life, sir.
Cytochrome C oxidase. So why
Never.
would you say, so this is very strange, because why would you say that I was angry about him showing me wrong, to be wrong about something, when the video that I made, the original video that he took a section out of, clearly you hear me explain myself what the cytochrome C oxidase does, how it's transferring electrons. So understand that, I don't understand how you're making any sort of accusation like you made.
Was your statement that you made about cytochrome oxidase different than the one you had in the text on JD's channel?
Yeah, what I basically did was, when I was talking about the electron transport chain, I wasn't about talking about how the electrons are transferred over. The electron transport chain, one of these complex proteins along that inner membrane,
I just asked you if
carry the electrons over. So what I said specifically,
I just asked if it was different. I didn't ask you to explain it. It's
are
really
transferred over to the cytochrome oxidase.
True.
Here's the point. Here's the point. This is important. This is fundamental. Don't interrupt. Here's what's actually. You're saying that he corrected me on something, but when I explained how the electrons were transferred over with the cytochrome C oxidase, clearly he couldn't have corrected me on something that I corrected myself over. Now, the only way that somebody's going to miss that is if they don't understand how the cytochrome C oxidase is. The reason why I'm bringing this up.
Okay, so in that chat that we were having under JD's channel, did you not say that oxygen was oxidized? Yes or no? Very simple.
You cut out right there at the beginning when you were speaking. Repeat yourself.
On the original thread, when you were describing the process, did you or did you not say that oxygen was oxidized in that process?
No, I didn't say that oxygen was oxidized in the thread. What I did was I explained the process, and I think that there was because when I was thinking of the video, I was thinking about that part in the video where I was talking about cytochrome C oxidase transferring the electrons. So I was thinking that he was disagreeing with the process of the electron transport chain. We were looking at it from two different angles. But he's sitting over here claiming that he watched the video and ignores the part where I was explaining cytochrome C oxidase.
The thing that he was commenting on was a statement that you had made. Whether it was in the video or whether it was in the thread is irrelevant.
Yeah, I know. There was a section.
That was beside the point. Hold on, I'm explaining exactly because we had a long conversation about it. There's a point where you stated that oxygen is oxidized, and according to chemistry, the only thing that can oxidize oxygen is fluorine. So
right.
That doesn't play any role in this entire process of cellular respiration at any given time. So that particular error that you had stated, whether it had been on the thread or the video, that's what he was correcting. So there was no two angles or six angles or other angles that he was coming at. It was addressing that particular point from that claim.
Right. He talked about oxidation. There's a lot of things that hit on with this. He talked about the mistake that I made when I was talking about oxidation, but he ignored the part where I corrected myself in the chain with the process where it's actually transferring the electrons, and then you get the 4 hydrogen ions being sent through the membrane space, and the other hydrogen ions being attached to oxygen atoms, the 2 oxygen atoms, and you get these 2 water molecules formed. So when I explain that process, it's actually explaining what's actually happening with atoms. He ignored the correction, and his attitude was pretty much like this. Me saying, well, 2 plus 2 is 5. Oh, no, I mean, no, you said 5. It comes off as that, or he only understands oxidation, which is something you probably learned in high school or introductory level college. Didn't understand the process of the electron transport chain, which is why he wasn't able to pick up on that. Now, talking about oxidation, at the beginning of the video, when I started speaking, oxygen FAD, do you remember what I said about FAD?
No, this was like a week or two ago, dude.
But you know what that is, right?
I have never heard of FAD ever in my life, but yet I've somehow gotten to third-year college.
A flavin identity dinucleotide. That's what it is.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
It's fully oxidized afterwards. What you end up seeing happening is what? It's going to then accept 2 electrons and 2 protons to become FADH2. I went about talking about it, excuse me, in a little bit of detail, not too much detail, but clearly there was another part at the beginning of the distinction where I'm pointing out something, oxidation, or something that had to go through oxidation compared to what happened later on inside of the video. It doesn't seem like you were being too objective when you were making the video. It seemed like when you made the video, you just wanted to say, well, no, true is wrong. And it was actually taking place and how people were reacting towards the video.
So what particular claim was I criticizing that you made?
Well, I already said. I mean, the video that you made, it was in response to my video that I made towards Steve. Steve's video.
It was in response to the video you made.
I can't hear you, man. Your mic is really bad.
You said the video that I made was towards one claim that you made about oxygen being oxidized. The other claims about FAD, I didn't even cover. That's the issue here. Now, what we're specifically, the entire thing was sparked from your inability on the thread itself not to correct yourself when someone brought it up. Even though I can't comment under it because you have my other account blocked, I appeared on there under my Arcane Phobos account. And that's why I was laughing. That was the entire point of me laughing, is because when he corrected you the first time, or actually, first time he didn't correct you, he asked you to clarify it. And the first thing you responded with oxidase, I think it was something, cytochrome oxidase C. That was the response that
you know why I did that, though, right?
So that, okay, how about you let me finish?
Here's the problem. Well, I need to correct you before you make a mistake.
Kind of talking.
You can't just
still
like this. I have to deal with them one at a time. Just
happened.
So with cytochrome C oxidase.
All right, one at a time. Wait, one at a time. Finish your point, Drag, and then you go, True.
All right, go ahead, Drag.
So the response that you gave him, cytochrome oxidase C, did not make sense, and then that spawned a few other people who hadn't even been on the thread to come and see your response to him. That is actually what initiated the other videos and the other responses and everybody else coming. So it's not an issue of you bringing up anything extraneous to this conversation, FAD, NADH, or anything else. It was the fact that you did not articulate what you meant when you had made that original mistake, when you had said oxygen gets oxidized.
Right. So, all right. So I'm going to respond now, and I need to make this quick because I actually have to take off in about 10 minutes or so. Just heard he said he doesn't understand anything about cytochrome C. Obviously, if I were to post in the comment section cytochrome C, that would be referring to what was said in the video was criticized. So there's no way for somebody to correct me on something that I corrected myself on in the video when explaining cytochrome C. When we're talking about the actual thing that's up for the topic right now, talking about oxidation, I corrected myself in the video short after this situation, explaining that it is cytochrome C oxidase transferring the electrons to this. When you have these 8 electrons transferred over, you end up getting 2 water molecules formed, and then the other hydrogen ions are pumped along through the membrane, and they're used for, in the long run to try to produce some sort of gradient, so that you can have, the electron chain do its end job. This is the problem here. From the start, he admits, pay attention to this, guys, he didn't understand that the guy here that I'm talking to, and he's saying, well, it didn't make sense for me to post in the thread under the video that I'm talking about, post cytochrome C oxidase. If he understood cytochrome C oxidase, it would make perfect sense. Oxidase is transferring the electrons. That's what the electron transport chain has to do with. You're getting electron. It's an electron carrier. Then he would understand it. So the problem here is that Dragnot and the group of people under that thread didn't understand cytochrome C oxidase. They only understood the statement of oxidation, which is something separate issue altogether. Introductory level college or high school. I think I remember touching on that when I was in high school. But anyways, the point is he also forgot earlier inside of the video where I mentioned an oxidation, something that happens during oxidation. Afterwards, I don't remember specifically the details of how I explained it, but I mentioned FADH2 and what happens after it's fully oxidized. So the problem here is just pure ignorance, and I think that what he needs to do is before Dragnok you start criticizing me, you need to first and make sure you know what you're criticizing me about. As a matter of fact, I actually explained in detail afterwards and before that to other people what needs to be reduced, what cytochrome C oxidase is intending to do, and if you look at the comments, it didn't appear as if people were actually getting that. Now, I actually had this discussion as well with Fiona for a brief period of time, and I think it was the same thread, or it might have been another thread on this particular issue. And I suspect that she's aware of that, what I was talking about as well, just because of the way that she was responding. But the same thing ended up happening there. Most of the people that were getting the picture. So all I'm saying is that before you start criticizing a video, I think you need to know what's being talked about in the video before criticizing me, and you admit about it. So this explains the reason why you weren't getting the picture.
You done? Okay, so here's the funny thing.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, cool. I've taken these courses over a year ago. I passed this. You don't get to determine what I do and don't know. First and foremost. First and foremost, let me educate you on something, dude. All right. So you must have missed that entire hangout that Steve and I did a while back, where I even showed the PowerPoint that I had from these classes. So when I asked you what oxidizes oxygen, and why you asserted, for some strange reason, that cytochrome oxidase C is the response to Steve asking you, why would you say that oxygen is getting oxidized in cellular respiration, you failed to actually acknowledge that what you were talking about is oxygen acting as an oxidizer.
The original video that was being criticized explained it.
I'm still
talking. You're not going to lie about me right here.
Antonio.
Oh, yeah, you go ahead.
Right now. Okay, he's about to lie about me right now. Hold on a second.
Wait, True. I know. I'll let you get to respond.
Right now, I just want to point that he's going to say afterwards.
I let you finish.
I brought up cytochrome C oxidase. I got to leave right now, so I can't sit around listening to this all day.
You can respond to it later.
Anybody goes to the original video, I'm explaining the process of what cytochrome C oxidase does. You can't get around that. What's happening is that you and the people in the comment section did not know the process that I'm explaining. So when I mentioned cytochrome C oxidase, it was an exact response that they should have understood, you should have understood, and it was thoroughly explained, and the explanation was actually given. Even Steve had to acknowledge in the response that he made after the response that I put up myself in the video that I put up. To sit over here and act like I got something wrong is only being a statement made by ignorance. Why won't you just be honest enough to admit that you didn't understand the topic? I think that you're being dishonest right now.
I didn't. That's
all I had to say about it. For anybody.
Are you done?
It's Steve McCoy. Irony alert. I put that after he's finished. Antonio's finished uploading this video.
Yeah.
You can go cry about it later. That's fine.
I gotta go. I gotta get myself ready for work. I gotta take off. But everybody just consider and think about what direction. Go to the. I'll link that video here, and then watch that after this goes live.
Go for it. All right. Cool. So.
All right. Thanks for coming by, man.
So the issue is, see, this is the sad part. I let him finish. I let him say whatever he wanted to say, but for some strange reason, he feels the need to be very rude to me. And I consider this issue dead. That's why I didn't say anything to True, but evidently I get under his skin. So, well, first and foremost, having True try to, I guess, gauge my level of education is really funny, considering what I actually do in real life. But regardless, the issue that we had, and I'll say this again, and this is why I preface the entire statement when we were on the thread, that's what we were responding to. True's inability to take correction right then and there. He had to have somebody else to actually tell him, hey, you fucked up. And then afterwards, he made the correction. So, I mean, Sean, you can sit here and ball rub in the comments all day. That's fine. The issue that I have with True is that he can never take just anyone asking him for clarification. You know what? I get it. It's cool. And I even said this in this Hangout that Steve hosted afterwards. People confuse the object, or I should say the atom being oxidized and oxidation all the time. It's really, really, really common. It's so common that people who are chemistry majors still make that mistake. But the fact that True can't take any type of correction from anyone he doesn't like is indicative of somebody who has a weak mind, in my opinion. But, you know, I can take my opinion and shove it, and I understand that. So,
can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Jorg.
No, you go ahead.
Antonio, is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead. Just because I don't really want to make this hangout about this. I actually want to talk to Drag about something, but you can go ahead and say what you want to say.
No, I just wanted to make this really quick comment, and then I have to leave. So, this wouldn't continue to be an issue if the only thing Ronnie did was just say, "Listen, I goofed. It was a mistake. Whatever. Here's the correction." If he just left it at that, which he did do later, he did obviously make a correction. Then nobody would say anything. It'd be like, okay, well, he goofed again. Just leave him, and move on. This would have been done weeks ago. But instead, what's happening? Empiricism's in the room.
Yep, you got to come back in.
Okay. But instead what's happening is, yeah, I made a mistake, but look at you guys. Look at what you did. Look at, dishonesty. He's bringing everybody down with him to do something like this. And that's where this thing keeps getting brought up. It's one thing to just say, I goofed, that's it, and we move on. Everybody would. Drag wouldn't be talking about it. I wouldn't be talking about it, Steve, everybody else. But it's when you start dragging people through the mud and then you just start changing little details of the story, or make yourself look a little bit better, or these minor tweakings. That's where people have problems with, and these attacks.
Wow.
Great, I'm a liar. Great, I'm a liar. Okay.
You're gonna sit
and
over
these little attacks. Yep. Great, I'm a liar. True. I didn't. Great, I'm a liar. I am a liar. Okay. Great, I'm a liar.
Antonio, I want you
Great, I'm a liar. Great, I'm a liar. True. I admit it right now. I am a liar. There you go. Now let me finish. Great, I am a liar, True. I am in the middle of a sentence right now.
Antonio, can you do me a favor really quick? Can you screen share this?
You are supposed to go to work. What are you doing? Why are you interrupting?
I know what you guys want to do. You want to lie about events. So how about
Antonio, can you please, seriously?
What actually happened?
Well, finish
about the topic, and you're going to sit over here and act like you know or have a position to criticize it. If
I commented, listen, I read the entire thread.
One of you are going to even know what I'm talking about.
You interrupted me. You interrupted me.
Because here's what I want to do. I want him.
You interrupted me. You interrupted me.
We can go check it out. You're
Antonio, right. Seriously, he interrupted me, and I thought this was going to be a court.
I was just going to say.
Here's what I'd like to do. Screen share this.
True. Were you not just saying that you were going to go to work?
That these people are lying.
I wish I had his.
What have I lied about? The fact that you goofed and admitted it, and then you started turning around and attacking other people?
Here's what I ended up doing.
Yes, you did.
Here's what ended up happening. Do you want to hear what ended up happening?
You made a mistake. There's no problem. True. I have not even said a single lie.
Hey, did he correct me on any mistake?
True. You are still interrupting me. I just said.
Did I or not?
If you're gonna mute me, why are you asking me a question if you're gonna mute me?
And share the video. Share the video.
Stop asking me a question if you're going to mute me.
He doesn't know what he's
You made a mistake.
I don't want to hear you. Share the video. These people are lying.
I'm on the phone. I can't share a video.
I'm not asking
you made a mistake.
To share the video, dipstick. He's trying to share the video.
True, you interrupted me. You're the one being incredibly rude and dishonest right now. You're being dishonest.
Let him share the video.
You are not the moderator of this room. Antonio is. Let him mute me if he decides to.
All right, both of you.
True, fuck off.
I'm just going to play the video right here.
So many non-believers love to scream so much from under the bed, or criticize endlessly through comments or hangouts, but almost never too soon meet with those they criticize. A perfect example of this would be Steve. I suspect that most of my viewers should be aware of this by now, but for those that are not up to date, Steve is one of the many non-believers here on YouTube that criticize other myself endlessly. To certain criticisms and the clear underhanded position I find Steve in, I have attempted for months to engage with Steve in a one-on-one discussion, either on my channel or on the ground, only to be met with petty excuses. So when Steve never got a hold of me, but other people came to me claiming he was open to a discussion, I generously accepted his offer. Well, quickly it went downhill from here. After accepting his terms and adding my own, he weaseled out. And then, to give him all of his terms and his own discussion that he laid out, he took cowardice to a whole other level, confirming my suspicions from the start that he wasn't going to follow through, that it was all a stunt to help him go through some damage control his cowardice was in need of.
It's a live feed. And he says, I do accept, but no, I don't care anymore, so it doesn't matter. He blew his opportunity and he will fuck off.
Right. First, let's keep in mind that how I blew it was by he never got a hold of me, and I went out and looked for him so that we can try to get this discussion going. 2, I agreed to his terms. 3, I added a term, get this, that he should defend his own views as I defended my own. How dare I try to get him to defend his views, guys? And as we all heard just now, when I let my addition go to this discussion, I was going to allow his terms in full in the discussion he supposedly wanted, and he refused. Instead of Steve engaging with me, he has decided to respond to me at distance from me, focusing in on what I say in the video. Let's take a listen to Steve's video and his accusation of doubling down. What happens is that she would have cytochrome oxygen or electrons from the oxygen atom. What happens is that she would have cytochrome oxygen or electrons from the oxygen atom. You see what Steve has done? He has watched carefully, waiting for me to misspeak, and jumps on it in order to blow it out of proportion. But if you listen in the very video that he had taken this clip from, afterwards, you hear me correct myself, explaining that it is cytochrome C oxidase that is transferring the electrons. Cytochrome C oxidase, what you see, is a complex that then transfers electrons. Like I mentioned earlier, we get water form in the long run. The hilarious part about all this is that Steve has been observed doubling down on a similar topic as this. This is an earlier attempt Steve has made against me in order to demonstrate it is I that does not understand the science. ATP synthase built out numerous different enzymes with proteins.
This animated sequence shows the ATP synthase enzyme in operation.
So here Steve tried to demonstrate that because ATP synthase is an enzyme, it didn't have multiple different subunit parts.
And I really want to hear and watch all this.
For anybody who understands the one part of the structure for himself. After this was pointed out to him, adding
it's almost over anyway,
as if and ATP synthesis were not connected. Now there's much more
well,
that
True's not even in the room anymore, so it doesn't matter.
He doesn't understand pseudogene. Hoping that you guys understand the type of underhanded tactics that these guys have to go through in order to keep on trying to discredit us. They know that they can't refute us face to face or at distance, so they find snippets in videos where one of us may misspeak, even if we correct ourselves, or they just try to give a different spin on what we say by taking us out of context. But just as Steve just now, usually they end up hanging themselves, exposing that they don't understand the very topic they're criticizing us over. In the end, being forced to double down.
The only reason why I let that play is because it seems like
It was just echoing from the video. But
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying the reason why I let the video play is because clearly people are offering defenses for their positions on what was going on, and that was just the reason why I allowed the video to play. But I ultimately have no dog in this fight either way, so y'all can settle that among yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the issue was dead as far as I had forgotten about it until he decided to resurrect it. Evidently, he was still upset about it for some strange reason.
But you just hit the nail on the head. This issue, it's like a zombie topic. It just keeps coming back because it's not only that, okay, if he made a mistake, which he did in the beginning, as was evidenced by the video you just played, and he corrected himself, or he was corrected later on, that's fine. He admitted it. He made a mistake. He fixed it. Done. That's it. Drop it. Move on. Just go on with life. Instead, there were threads. There was back talking. There was videos. There was, ad hom attacks. All these just personal insults and all this stuff going back and forth. And I'm not saying he was the sole perpetrator. Obviously, it happened on both sides. But you don't apologize by saying, by the way, you're a douchebag, but I'm sorry what I did. Like that's not how someone goes about behaving, And you wonder why this issue keeps coming back. I just chastised Steve just now in the live hangout, saying why are we still talking about this?
All right, I really don't want to turn my hangout into this. I am even done talking about this at this point. So if y'all still have unresolved issues after this, y'all gonna have to find some way to resolve it amongst yourselves, because. Yeah, I'm done dealing with this in my room right here, right now.
Well, that's fine. I'm probably going to dip right now. I have to go to the gym. But thanks for letting me in.
All right, thanks for coming by.
No problem. Bye-bye.
So you said you wanted to talk about something, Antonio?
Yeah, my one of my admins for my forum had told me that you came by and dropped a visit. So what was that about?
I dropped by and said, I didn't know this existed. I wanted to know where you were, because you had this whole debate page that you seemed like you would abandon. And I figured you would spend so much time with the clown car posse, as we call them, to manage the page.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't abandon it. I just been working on some other stuff to try to grow it. I just hadn't. I ain't been there in a while, but I didn't abandon it. But it's still definitely my page. It actually belongs to me and another lady. So yeah. But is there anything specific that you want to address with me? Because apparently, you've wanted to say something to me for quite some time. So what exactly do you want to talk about?
It was something from a while back. I think it was. It had something a bit to do with you just kind of co-signing on true statements, even though you really weren't in the know, so to speak, on a lot of the stuff. And I get it, if you're cool with him, you're going to agree with him. But some of it was clearly defamatory for certain folks. And I understand, rolling with people that you're cool with and yada yada and shooting shit. But one thing that I just kind of found ironic is that while Ronnie is upset that people, shit talk left, right, and the other, and wait for him to mess up on stuff, there doesn't seem to be anyone around him to actually stop him and go, you know what? Maybe you need to tone it back. Maybe you need to just slow your roll just a bit and stop calling everybody a liar. Stop saying that anytime someone makes a mistake, they're automatically know that they're lying. When you don't want to give anybody the benefit of the doubt, and you're upset that no one gives you the benefit of that. You see what I mean?
Well, I've talked to Hogtie in brief about a lot of this nonsense, and I think this whole just mudslinging back and forth is a product of the great debate just going downhill, and it's turned into crap like this. And both Hogtie and I have both expressed our frustrations with where this mess is going. We're not even really seriously even talking about issues anymore. All it is about just drama-filled nonsense left and right. And I didn't come to G Plus to be a part of any of this nonsense.
That's fair. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if Fox I want to add something in on that.
I did want to add, Drag, that it sounds like you're underwater. Normally you're one of the better sort of quality microphone.
Well, I've used it on my iPad, but it seems that Google Plus hates my iPad, and every time I connect, I wait 5 minutes.
Oh, weird. Okay. Well, hopefully we get you back at some point with your good sort of clarity and whatnot. Yeah, I actually had come in to sort of point out one particular thing, but I do want to echo what Antonio was saying, because I do think I get frustrated, as Antonio does, and I would say there's actually a growing group. Sorry, Antonio, I'm getting a wicked echo. Yeah. I get a little frustrated, and I think it's a growing. I think a lot of people are frustrated, and I think it's a growing crew that's becoming more vocal about it. My ears really perked up when I heard Tommy Hall open his new series just with a speech about how it used to be fun, but it's not. There's always going to be some ponage. We'll never get rid of the ponage or the drama, and I don't think we should, because it's part of what makes it fun. I'd say it's a pointless effort to try to get rid of it, but it seems to have taken the place of actual discussion. And that to me is really frustrating, because as we've all commented on, we all learn, and we learn more about each other's positions. Plus there's lots of neat things we learn about science and philosophy. There's so many things I've learned in the last few years just joining in this rancorous discussion. You know, how many people have learned more about DNA because of issues that true empiricism has brought up, and then other people have laughed at them for it. But then at least we discuss these things and we learn these things. And lately, it seems like we're not getting issues to learn about. I'm going to say something about neuro for a second, so please jump in if that tickles a point, because I don't want to go too long on the mic here. But
well, I have a quick point, because I'm actually Hangout. I was going to bring in all my other viewers. I got 42 people watching, 44. Antonio, I can bring them over here if you want, as long as you don't delete this video.
I had no plans to I don't delete anything on my page at all, so...
Okay. If you want to do that, because I saw you watching some videos, and I'm happy to join your discussion. I'm having some glitches on mine anyways. I was going to bring all my viewers over to here and kind of go over some...
If we have a discussion about anything, it will not be about any of this drama nonsense between these people, between us, the Clown Car Posse,
No, just the some of the problems in the videos, and I guess you were bringing up where the problems lied and what were the actual issues.
You know what? I'm just gonna suggest a topic that we all talk about. How about we? What do I want to talk about?
Well, I do. Can I say a couple more thoughts about the conversation itself? I had a little frustration. Now, mind you, I have been a little busy the last many days, but it's not like I really would have had the time to join into a discussion about it. But I mean, true empiricism now brings up another topic that has to do with neuropsychology, and he's made these points, and there's been no discussion of it. There's been not that I've seen. There may be. I guess there've been a lot of Hangouts in the last couple of days running on a few different channels. There's probably been 40 hours of Hangouts. So surely I've missed something. But I haven't seen anyone sit down and discuss what Penrose's findings mean, for example. There's been no challenging discussion about, well, what can we learn from this stuff? What do these surgery experiments tell us? What about near-death experiences? What do these things tell us? There's just been no discussion.
I think it's actually Penfield. I think he did the same thing he did.
Did I?
Yeah, he
kept saying Penfield and he meant Penrose.
Yeah.
It's been... Right, he said Penrose and meant Penfield.
Yeah.
Okay, which one's the surgeon? Oh my goodness, Penrose is the physicist.
Penfield, I think, is the...
Yes, Penfield.
The surgeon. Yeah. That's weird. He has interesting stuff to say too. So sorry, it's Penfield is the surgeon, yeah. Yeah, and then there's Eben Alexander's near-death experience. I mean, he's brought these issues up, and there's been no discussion about it. What I see happen was one person, a rational mind, had noticed some plagiarism, and boom, the whole community's now in hours of Hangouts about how, well, that's funny that he plagiarized. Well, that's not plagiarism, and look at how there's, character assassination, and even you, Antonio, had mentioned how the atheists are going about this wrong. If they really wanted to bring down his YouTube channel and get him kicked off YouTube, well, they would do this other thing instead. Well, put the brakes on. put the brakes on first. So who's talking about taking down his YouTube channel? Where is this coming from? This absolute like now the conversation is about who's attacking who and how it's personal attacks and people don't understand this material. People don't know what I know about this material and just really.
Why are we even still talking about this? This is going like nowhere. We're still talking about all this drama nonsense.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Squash it. I think that's what this kind of last bit is here.
Yeah, well, this will blow over really quickly. This is a pretty small thing, but I'll just show you something here real quick. I mean, this is my only contribution to it. I don't even want to take up any airtime on it. There's going to be a self-effacing chuckle here in a moment. I had put this post up here just a few minutes ago. It's an open letter to you, Antonio, and Irrational Mind. I do tag True Empiricism. There's some confusion here because he did ask me some time ago to not tag him in posts anymore, but I hope that he will recognize that the reason I'm tagging him here is because it discusses him quite a bit, and I don't want him thinking that I'm sort of sneaking around talking about behind his back. So I'm not trying to embroil him in a conversation about it. But there's a point where you're like, well, it's only fair to let him know. But so I typed this out. It talks about 2 issues: plagiarism and brain surgery. And I hit post, and then I went back and reloaded the page, and then it said, read more, 268 lines. And I went, wow, Hogtie, that's a new record. I will suggest to you that it's quite well organized. There's a first section here that talks about plagiarism, and then there's a section down here that I went past it that talks about brain surgery a little bit, and then at the end there's a last little section that just says my point, and it is rather short and easy to read. And you notice down here it says, frankly, I am just tired of the constant refusal to discuss the actual issues and the ongoing preference to engage in or complain about personal attacks and drama. It's tedious, don't you think? And I do think you agree with that point, having actually just made it before I even said it. But honestly, part of what the problem here is we've just gotten to the point now where, okay, so True Empiricism wants to talk about neuroanatomy or neurophysiology or neuropsychology, whichever subfield that comes from. I'd say neuropsychology. But then he doesn't create an environment where anybody's going to talk to him about it. He specifically listed a few people who don't know anything about this topic. He included my name in that as somebody who doesn't know anything about this topic, and doesn't say, well, you know what, maybe Hogtie does know something about this. I'm going to invite him to a hangout. I'm going to let him know ahead of time I'm having this hangout. No, instead he's got the front door locked as usual and muting and booting and all this other stuff. And it's gotten to the point where even if I would have thought, well, you know what, I've got time, I'll pop in for a couple of minutes and I'll chat with him about this stuff because, oh my goodness, it's finally a new topic. We're not talking about DNA for week after week after week. This is finally a new topic. Let's talk about this. I sort of feel like, why do I even want to go into his room and just, deal with the drama? Just a lot of these things are really hurtful, and what I hear, I'll wrap up on this point, Antonio. What I hear from you and your side, I listened to you and True Empiricism and Arcane talk about this morning, and what I hear from you guys is just the constant, oh well, what can you do when the atheists are like this, and what can you do with the personal attacks, and oh, we're such nice guys, and what do you do here? I don't hear one word to True Empiricism about, hey, how's about maybe you dial back calling people liars all the time? He's in your live chat right now calling Hannah, I'm going to mispronounce her last name, Zubi, whatever, running dog Hannah, which would be...
My name is whatever you want it to be, honey. You go right ahead.
Running dog Hannah. He's calling her a liar in your live chat right now. Like this has just become the tone of the conversation, and as JD was pointing out in his part of that chat this morning, which I didn't get to hear all of because of the way the PVR thing works, but he was pointing out, look, like as much as True Empiricism wants to say that, oh, it's the JD Keynes and the Steve McRae's of the world that just make for shit conversation on this whole system. Well, you know what? JD can open a room and he can bring in. He mentioned the conversation that Ozzy and I had with 2 Christian apologists. That was an in-depth, good, piercing conversation where everybody was respectful and polite to everybody. That's one among many that he's hosted, one among many that I've hosted. All of us are capable of opening a room and having some good conversation where everybody's respectful. The exceptions to that rule seem to be true empiricism and Nephilim free, that you can't just go into their conversation and have into the room and have a decent conversation. It happens sometimes, but as soon as it gets a little bit heated, then suddenly you're a liar, and what's the point? So I'm just saying, it's great to sit here and listen to you guys complain about what jerks we all are and how, if it weren't for those atheists, we could have good conversations. But why don't you pepper it once in a while with some honest recognition about what goes on from your brother in Christ with regard to his complete lack of respect for other people's knowledge, contributions, and their honesty in these conversations, myself included and many others. Why, thank you.
Well, hold on, man. You're sitting up here talking about that there's like not a forum for like respectful discussion in his rooms, to where we had several conversations with multiple personality, and all of our discussions went off without a hitch, despite our differing views. So I think it's just absolute nonsense when you sit up here and say there's no forum for respectful discussion in his room.
That's your response to that, is to say, well, there's one guy, and there's more than one guy. I've seen you have some respectful conversations with some people, but the fact that you can't, when I say you, I don't mean you, Antonio, I mean you, in the presence of true empiricism, cannot have a respectful conversation with Ruhif, for example, one of the kindest, like most respectful and knowledgeable and patient people, to discuss that specific area of material that he's been there to discuss. And especially to have him leave the room and to say, well, it's clear he doesn't know what he's talking about. He had nothing to say. He was basically saying nothing. You see, I asked him this question and he didn't know. Like, he was totally stumped. I don't think he's reading the papers. You guys accusing Ruhif of not reading the papers that he's bringing in for discussion.
Hey, I didn't make no accusations of nothing.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't.
I didn't have any knowledge on that topic. I didn't make no accusations about anything.
But you'll listen to the guy who does make that accusation, and not ever say, well, come on. I mean, obviously the guy reads the stuff. Like, obviously we disagree on the import of the material. But you'll sit there and you'll watch, like, Ruhif explain something, and screen share articles. Ruhif will screen share his own posts where he has rewritten and blogged information digesting several different articles. You have to have a high level of understanding to be able to produce that sort of material. And you'll listen to that guy, and as soon as he leaves the room, you'll say or endorse someone else saying, like in this case, true empiricism, saying, oh, well, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. He's faking it. He's not really reading the papers. And yet you'll also sit in that same room and you'll watch somebody ask, so True Empiricism will have screen shared a portion of genetic code, and you'll listen to True Empiricism say, oh, this thing's right full of telomeric repeats. And him being asked, well, can you highlight one of these telomeric repeats? I'm not seeing what you're looking at. And you'll watch Ronnie spin his cursor around in circles on the screen looking for what he thinks might be a telomeric repeat. And you don't recognize he doesn't know what he's talking about. So when someone points out he doesn't know what he's talking about, you get all offended that, well, how can somebody say that this Christian doesn't know what he's talking about? When on every demonstration it's pretty obvious he doesn't know what he's talking about, you know?
You know what, man? I can respond to that, but the reason why I just want to kill this nonsense right here, right now, is because I just made it very clear that I didn't want to make my hangout about none of this nonsense, and we're still talking about this nonsense right here, right now. So whatever.
Yeah, I accept that point, and I accept that point, and I apologize. And I want to say thank you. I did get a chance to sort of get that off my chest, and for those who care, I did post again an egregiously long, hopefully well organized thing about it. You can read about it there, as opposed to taking up Antonio's hangout time. And I want to actually thank you, Antonio, because again, this is the type of discipline it takes to get past this problem, is for the room owner to once in a while say, hey, guess what, folks? We're not talking about this. Hey, here's a topic. We're now talking about that. And I respect that you do that. With some embarrassment, I accept that from you.
I don't think you got nothing to be embarrassed about, man. I appreciate it. Did you have something to say, Steve?
Oh, I was just a quick.
Of course he does.
I'm sorry, what?
Of course you have something to say.
Sorry, that was funny.
No, I mean, these things do need to be sussed out. I mean, obviously, Hogtie is a very loquacious and verbose way of stating things, and he does it very eloquently, though. I mean, 300 lines, wow. I looked through most of it. It is really good from what I've read so far. God bless his patience to do something like that. But in a nutshell, you know, people come into my room, Antonio, and they do recognize it as an open playing field. They do recognize it somewhere where we can discuss absolutely anything. Sean came over. You know, we had a wonderful discussion. I was actually enchanted by some of the things that we were actually discussing, because I don't get a chance to discuss certain things about my background very much. And it was nice to have somebody come in and, have a little discussion of something I'm familiar with, right? Sean's like, I'm enchanting. Yeah, he's no flatter. But, we do that in my rooms, and that's why I have a lot of listeners. And I know that you're trying to run a room like that too, and I get that. I do. I really think that you have the potential to moderate when you want to. But I think what we're boiled down to is when True says he wants to discuss some of these things, and we do point out why he's wrong, you're always sitting there going, well, no, all of them are wrong, and yet you don't know the issues, but all of us are wrong, and True has to be right, only because he's a brother in Christ. You'd never take a step back.
That's not it at all.
Have you ever taken a step back and said, look, if true empiricism was an atheist, how would I evaluate these situations? Would he have been right about the sodium C oxidase? Would he have been right about DNA degrading in water? Would he have been right about all of the gaps that he's done? Would he have been right about them? That's how you need to look at things.
That ain't got nothing to do with him being a brother or not, because I've defended people like Hogtie on multiple occasions, all right? That ain't got nothing to do with him being a brother or not, because there's certain things about this topic I don't know about. Like, I'm not super up to the technical aspects of stuff like cytochrome C oxidase or whatever it is, or all these other things, but if I'm knowledgeable and can see what's going on, like I actually did defend Hogtie in a hangout with True when I asked Hogtie about how we should go about this debate between evolution and intelligent design, and he thought he was filibustering, and I just told him, well, wait, man, all I was doing, all I think he was doing was just trying to explain his position. I don't feel like he was filibustering. So this notion that I just listen to somebody because they're a brother is just absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you don't support some people at certain times, but again, I don't think you've understood what I said. You're supporting him on the science when you self-admittedly not that hip on the science. So why are you automatically defaulting that he's correct on it? When you know that there's absolutely well-educated people out there, and nobody with an education has ever told True empiricism that he's right on these things. Everyone that has any kind of schooling has told him he's wrong. So what are you using as a comparative model to say, oh, look, True is actually right on these science things, other than you happen to side with his religious beliefs?
Well, you had the opportunity several times to have a conversation with him, and you see how that ended up.
Yeah, he won't do it. He's just incapable of having a conversation, Antonio. He's incapable. Just incapable.
All right. We're gonna have to leave it at that, because this is going nowhere. This is gonna keep on just.
Some of us have been very frustrated, but we can pick it up another day or just drop it. I mean, it's fine. I'd rather mess with Beckel's taste in anime. That actually interests me.
Anime?
Can you guys hear Drag, or is that just me?
What?
I can hear him, but just barely.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
I'm kissing the monitor, so.
Kiss it.
Yeah. I said I'd rather chastise Beckel and his taste in anime.
We've never really had a conversation about atheism as opposed to theism, so that's what I want to talk about right here. Now, I'm going to start by asking a question, and I'll abstract this. Like, atheists will say all the time, and I'm not saying this is you specifically, but what I hear from a lot of atheists is that they haven't seen enough evidence or sufficient evidence to believe in God, which in my many years was talking with atheists, I just haven't understood where their criteria really lies, because I'll ask them what their criteria is, and then almost every single time it'll just go way downhill, because the criteria that they put forth is just not, it doesn't make any sense. So if you were to say that this is sufficient evidence for God, then what would it be for you?
Well, that's an interesting question. I love what I answered, Steve.
What?
A lot of atheists will have a higher bar or higher margin for evidence for God, because claiming that a deity exists that has the three omni qualities is a pretty incredible claim. You have to consider that. So you're going to need some pretty incredible evidence to really support that. Now, my position as a theological non-cognitivist, that's it's almost an incoherent question, because I can't. How do you quantify or how do you qualify what a God even is? That's like saying if you're trying to convince me that this entity exists and this thing is omnipotent. Well, what is omnipotent? How do you measure omnipotent? How do you observe omnipotent? And so when you start sussing out a lot of these qualities, it's almost to the point that the things that you were saying about it is so incomprehensible that it's almost like you're talking about something that can't even exist. I'm not saying that's what a lot of people believe, but
right.
But that's some positions. Others, they have they'll say something like I'm trying to think of a bad argument, just for the sake of argument. If God appeared in front of me right now and told me that He was God, then I would believe it. That's kind of a lower on the scale example. But for me, it would have to be some way to demonstrably show that this is a deity. Whatever we agree that the word deity is and what it means and all the qualities to it, then I would acknowledge that, yes, this thing that we're going to call a deity even exists.
Okay. What I would start is for the God that I believe in, I look at Him as the greatest conceivable being with certain particular attributes, like He cannot be limited by time, He cannot be limited by space, He must be transcendent, He must know all things, and what I get off in all the time is just attacking little meaningless things within those criteria to try to drag the discussion into nowhere. And it's like for example, we will talk about like the concept of omnipotence, and it would just seem like what's happening here is when that concept is put forth, it'll be like, well, how would something like that be quantified? Well, how do you expect it to be quantified in like the terms of, let's say, naturalism or something like that? I don't know how you would want to quantify it in that way. You would have to quantify it in a different way. You have to use different criteria. Wouldn't you not agree?
Not necessarily. You could set up a standard, but the main issue is that when we're talking about science, and I'm just going to use science as an example, if we're going to use science as the means of testing whether this thing even exists, then we're kind of restricted to naturalism, and that I think is one of the main issues that we run across. But there are certain theists who believe that. I think they're called evidentialists. Feel free to correct me on that. But I believe they're called evidentialists, and that they believe that there is physical natural evidence to prove God. And so I would have to take aboard their assertions and their evidence and gauge it from there. But if they're not an evidentialist, then we're kind of almost at an impasse. I guess I could propose some type of standard separate from that of which we set in like methodological naturalism, but testing that is going to be the biggest struggle from what I see.
Mm-hmm. Did you have something to say, Sean?
No, I think what Drag said was pretty much what I think from a Christian's point of view, what I would say an atheist ought to need is like the same kind of thing, a really intense spiritual experience that would convince them that the other way. I mean, he basically like a personal encounter with God, or like he would have to know, the encounter would have to be so incredible that he would know it was God, and I think that's my position too. So,
right, how in the world would I be able to prove something like that to you? I can't prove that to you.
Then why do they try, Antonio?
Say what?
I'm agnostic, because I'm not an atheist.
I don't really think it's about trying to prove personal experience as much as it's
the arguments.
He's why are there apologetics?
Yeah,
I
agree with everything Drag said, but from my own personal experience, I get turned off when I listen to people make arguments for the existence of God using bad arguments, using fallacious reasoning. That turns me off to no end.
I agree fallacious reasoning exists, definitely.
What's that, Antonio?
I do agree that there have been some bad arguments put forth for the existence of God.
A lot. A lot.
Well, yeah, but that can go quite the converse direction as well.
Well, I mean, yes, atheists probably have arguments for why God does not exist, and some of them are better than others. But I mean, when you listen to a lot of these people try to convince people God exists, they don't do it from a faith-based perspective. They don't talk about their testimony too much and say, okay, I witnessed, the Holy Ghost came down to me and witnessed to me, and I felt, whatever. They do it from, hey, you know what, God exists because of the transcendental argument for God, or God exists because of intelligent design. These are horrible ways to convince an atheist that God exists. No atheist is going to sit there and say, yeah, you know what, I agree with you. The ontological argument is sound, and I'm going to believe in God. It's not going to happen.
But wait a minute. You sitting here talking about the fact that, well, I would assume that, at least from your non-believing perspective, that you would want to have some sort of evidence for God, right? And I would like to think that something like personal testimony wouldn't be good enough.
No, well, yes and no. I would look at it this way. If God exists, right, then the personal testimony from other people is a way for me to figure out how to get a personal testimony for myself. So I would feel, what I believe to be the Holy Ghost, which I haven't experienced in my youth when I was 17. That has kept me from negating theism altogether, because I did have an experience that I cannot explain. I'm still working through it even to this day.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody has these kind of experience, that is obviously an empirical thing. I mean, they maybe can't analyze it as such, or something you can't really touch or anything, but it's something you feel. But that's the kind of experiential thing that somebody has to have to convert. And so all these arguments out there dealing with science and dealing trying to negate the human chromosome number 2 or evolution, that's not convincing to an atheist. In fact, it has the opposite effect. It actually causes more people to go from theism to atheism than anything any atheist is ever going to say. I guarantee it.
I would agree with you. I mean, I stated in the chat that I didn't think ID was a good apologetic for God. I don't know if that's why Drew talks about ID. I think he might have more of I think he just doesn't like that evolution is taught in school, maybe. But I don't want to speak for him. But other people that seem to be pushing ID more, they seem to have more of an agenda of what ought to be taught to publics in public school or something. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to jump in, but I think his argument, because he always says that his ID argument isn't a God-based argument. It's a empirical argument. So I don't know if he doesn't understand that it implies God, or I don't understand if he's not.
No, it does not.
I know, Antonio. You know.
Well, he actually says an abductive argument, which is not. He's never came in an abductive argument for. He's never laid down the steps for it.
I'd rather stay away from trying to interpret what he means and let him elucidate that later. Because
that just seems like that's gonna go to a world of nowhere, honestly.
So y'all heard me say it here. But,
if we seeded some kind of life on another planet, and then our whole culture and all the life on Earth died out, and they later, I could see that they might come up with an ID and find out that they were, and that would be our intelligence at the time. So I don't think it necessitates God, but it's certainly always used by by someone with a theological background, or not always, but most of the time. I realize I misstepped there, Antonio. It's not always, but a lot of times. And so I would be gracious and just grant that, but there's the alien seeded. Oh well, there's the idea alien seeded life is one starting point for an ID model. I just don't personally agree with it.
Can I explore just that your hypothetical for a second, and if Antonio, if you decide it doesn't really bear fruit, I'm just curious. Sean, when you're talking about, so if we manage to seed life on another planet, are you talking about putting down the basic components, the basic building blocks for life, and then kind of letting it go, or do you mean there was a colony, we put human beings there and a bunch of animals and plants and stuff, and then they just forgot where they came from? Do you talk about that?
Where I thought of that, I mean, if we could somehow say the Youngs. Or it's the Miller-Urey experiment worked, and we found out how to make life from non-life from that, and we kind of shipped the
concoction off to a planet that would be in a Goldilocks zone for whatever, stew we made there, and we knew it would evolve on its own, then if it became intelligent enough to like start introspecting, maybe they could find out that they came from an intelligent source. I realize it's really anecdotal and hypothetical. So
yeah, well, I think there's two different kind of experiments there. Is that what if we, just sort of put the components there and then life formed, and or even if we just put in some really basic cells, that would be one thing. Versus a different thing where there's like an Earth colony, they figure out where they came from. Just a quick correction though, when you say that if the Miller-Urey experiment had worked and they would have been able to create life, if life would have appeared in the Miller-Urey experimental equipment, that would not have been a success for them. That was not what they were trying to do. That would have been a heck of a shock. Let's not represent their work. They were trying to create amino acids from just naturalistic forces, as opposed to synthesizing. Normally, when they go to synthesize compounds, like there are factories that synthesize vitamin C, for example, there's a recipe you have to follow to get vitamin C, synthesized vitamin C. I'm not talking about extracting vitamin C. I'm talking about when they actually synthesize vitamin C. There's a recipe they have to follow, and then they have to sort of filter out, well, we want these molecules and not those molecules. They were saying, well, if we put stuff together in a jar, will you get, obviously, very truncated explanation of it, will you still get things like amino acids or these other building blocks of life? There was no expectation that they were going to zap some electricity through it, and then there was going to be like a cell or like a little worm looking back at you. That's
I wasn't familiar with like what I could use an example of like life from non-life, but I'm just saying.
Well, I kind of jump on that clarification whenever I can make it, because it's a fairly common misunderstanding that gets thrown around the internet, is that, well, they were trying to create life, but they just couldn't do it.
And well, how they created life, though, they would have created amino acids too, right? I mean, I don't know why it'd be an abject failure if they created life, which was never the intent, obviously. But in order to create life, they would have had to create amino acids. What was the intent of it?
Well, it would have been noteworthy. I mean, if they were there sitting there saying, well, we can do this experiment, let's put these things together. They had an understanding of what the ancient Earth would have been. It turns out not to be a perfect understanding. That's since been, there's a few changes and corrections to it. And they were saying, well, but we could try to replicate those circumstances and see if these organic molecules would actually appear in some quantity. And then, so they did that. And then, well, okay, what if it would have turned out they'd looked in and there were like cells forming? And that would have been noteworthy. That was not what they're trying to do. But I take your point, Steve, that, well, that certainly would have been noteworthy. I'm definitely writing a paper about that. I mean, it would have been absolutely shocking.
It would have been hard to explain, though. I think about that. It probably would have been really hard to explain how that would have happened, how that would have occurred.
Well, I think it actually would have been hurtful to sort of random like abiogenesis sort of a view, because I mean what it would mean if that could happen, if you could during a conventional experimental period, and I mean a period of time, like whether it's days or weeks or hours or whatever the time would be, that you could actually create cells. I think that would have been, because we don't know how abiogenesis works. We don't know the steps to the first cell. So if it would have turned out to be that you can actually form cells in a week, that would be astonishing, staggering information. Definitely retool everyone's thinking about how that process would happen. You know, and I'm sure people would entertain the idea that that level of assembly is something that's guided, you know, by an intelligence, perhaps a creator God. There'd certainly be people entertaining that sort of idea. But then theologically, you'd have to wonder, well, then why did that creator God want to create life a second time in somebody's laboratory after the planet's already just filthy with life? So I don't know. That's all hypothetical.
And a criticism I would have of an alien race seeding our planet, like Sean would suggest, is why would they need to? If life is so ubiquitous in the universe, or at least these carbon compounds, these things that we know exist out there. We know there's a lot of organic compounds out there. And yes, I think organic compounds did help seed the Earth. Obviously, panspermia. I'm not saying that life came to Earth, but I mean the basic building blocks. Yes, I believe a lot of it did come from space. But why would an alien race need to do that? Put it all together in a lab and seed it to the planets? I think it's so natural that if these things do work this way, it would automatically just form in an environment such as Earth.
They have a movie about this.
They had a movie.
I could foresee like an accidental scenario too, where we were just kind of, if we sent something like the rover to a planet and there happened to just be stray, microbes or something that could survive in that environment, then give it enough time and
That's interesting. That's interesting. Is they actually scrub those things pretty clean, right? Whenever they send something out, like it's in a double. Yeah, they were actually kind of paranoid about. Well, geez, what happens if bacteria gets to Mars? I don't know. So is that something we need to worry about? But they say you do. I can envision circumstances in which an intelligent civilization would want to seed life on another planet, and that is like the view that is generally held about how it happened on Earth was that there were some circumstances in the ancient Earth that allowed for the assembly of these organic molecules, and the further assembly into sort of proto-life, like the little single as opposed to a double wall membrane, but like a single layer of phospholipids. And DNA replicating, so we have that sort of view of the circumstances being a certain way for that to happen, and then later the evolution and speciation of macrocellular life happened under a different set of conditions. Under this view, the Earth has been a changing stage, right? There used to not be a bunch of atmosphere in the oxygen, and then there used to be a whole bunch of atmosphere in the used to be. Let me start again. There used to be pretty much none oxygen in the atmosphere, and then there was a whole bunch of oxygen in the atmosphere, and then now there's less of it in the atmosphere. So we've developmentally gone through all these different stages. Well, what if there was a planet that didn't have that primordial phase, that right now has good circumstances for life to thrive and find different niches and climates and speciate and do all these different things, but it didn't go through that earlier phase, the sort of abiogenesis ripe phase. So it's ready for life. It's a sort of a good stage for life to spread around the planet and diversify and find their own niches, but was never ripe for that earlier stage to where life actually would have evolved there. Conceivably, an intelligent species, maybe our own, might say, well, you know what? No one's using that place. Let's drop some stuff off, and then I don't know why we would do that, but I'm just saying I can envision circumstances where there hadn't been abiogenesis, but an intelligent species would say, yeah, we can drop life off there.
There might be conditions where we can't do something because of the conditions on Earth, and I've heard of them trying to grow plants underwater to start establishing pockets of like biodome type pockets so that we could temporarily do something like that, but it's usually a really small article for such a big, an idea that you think it'd get a few pages in a magazine or something, but I don't go to the doctor's office that much.
I thought I was lagging. Oh shit. Okay. I think Prometheus actually explores this idea, well, albeit grimly, about how another alien race supposedly seeded our planet for the purposes, I think, of providing food for the aliens. I forgot the entire plot, but I mean, it's not, it's plausible. I mean, so in a way, I can accept ID as a concept of a possibility. It is a hypothesis at most. The fact that it's used most of the time by people trying to shoehorn in religion into schools, well, that's unfortunate, and I think it really does give it a bad rap. But I do enjoy talking about intelligent design, because if you actually look at a lot of the things on a molecular level, I'll just say things, hell, anything on a molecular level, there is uniformity to it, there's organization, and to our minds, to our pattern-seeking minds, it would seem as though things of this nature only happen when there is an intelligent agent in charge of it, making it happen that way. And I think just because we've seen that in our macro universe, as we live and breathe and thrive and stuff, we kind of expect that to remain true. So, I think it is. I don't know. It's nice to actually talk about it and wonder and ponder about it without a lot of the negative stigma that gets attached to it.
I just want to make a point real quick about this conversation about ID. Super cool, love it. However, it's completely incompatible with True's version of ID. because all these forms of, like, for example, the alien life showing up and dropping life off here, then taking off to go somewhere else, still involves the ideas of evolution into it, for the life to eventually grow and evolve over time.
Well, I didn't. Does True's version of intelligent design and in the natural world not include evolution?
That's what I don't know, because he spends so much time arguing against it and trying to refute it at every step of the way, that I think his version of ID has become, poof, there's humans.
Yeah, his what I said has to almost require the full common ancestry tree to be true. I mean, because, well, unless you're saying like the aliens dropped off, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of different species or something like that.
And that would be cool, Sean. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think that would be absolutely freaking amazing. But I don't think that's where the average intelligent design advocate wants to go.
It'd basically be like Space Noah's Ark, though, I think, at that point.
I think they'd be happy if they actually found out that evolution was completely true, except for some kind of insertion of DNA or genetic material by aliens. Do you think the average intelligent design advocate would be happy to learn that? No, I don't think that's where they really want to go. Do you?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think it's a good a theological argument, and so I think they kind of maybe don't get what they want, but they're happy to get anything. I don't know.
But one thing, can I ask a quick question?
But that goes beyond the scope of what intelligent design is. I mean, at best, it would just be a sort of negative result or a negative consequence if ID is true, but I don't really have any bearing on the position itself.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah, I guess I'm just saying this is one view that would be less controversial to some because it doesn't have the religious baggage if you're coming at it from a hostile point of view. That and that might be why you see that alien seeding idea come up, is that they just don't want to deal with the bias and hostility.
My understanding is that there's an ID argument against evolutionary theory, and then an ID argument for, I don't want to say panspermia, but for abiogenesis. I think True's argument is more an anti-evolution argument for ID than this abiogenesis argument for ID.
I really would have to hear it. Like, did he make a video explaining exactly how that works? I don't want to sit here and straw man and I
don't know. I don't remember. But I do know that most ideas I've talked to, they accept evolution. They realize that, yes, we have commonality. We have common descent. These things are not really even questionable with most ideas. Their argument is trying to say, well, we don't think this may have happened out by itself naturally. We think that there was a quote-unquote directed process by an intelligence, and we see intelligent design. This is designed by a deity, but everything the biologists are saying is true. Life goes back 4 billion years, but I think that intelligence did that. That's what the most intelligent design advocates that I've seen. Now in the great debate community, I don't see that. It's more, no, it's either evolution or intelligent design, rather than intelligent design as a way of explaining evolution. Do you guys agree with that at all?
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that's you nailed it.
I'm just trying to figure out how you would get the variations of species, or I'll use that term, the variation of kinds, without some type of mechanism. Like let's just go with ID, God or no God, doesn't matter. How would you get any type of variation if you don't have a mechanism to change anything, any of the allele frequencies of any given population?
Well, see, that I think is the confusion. Sometimes I even have with some of the ID arguments, because they'll accept, let's say, microevolution, but then reject macroevolution, and in doing so, almost make the argument that all the species that we have now were designed independently and have not evolved over time. So it's hard to kind of say what the argument really is when you look at it.
How did this discussion even get here? I thought we were talking about atheism.
It just kind of naturally moved on to things that people believe and hold to.
It evolved.
Yeah, the conversation. Yeah, here you go.
The conversation evolved. You're right.
Yeah, evolved. I'm not an atheist, so I can't speak on behalf of atheists. I already kind of given my perspective on what it would take, what I think an average atheist would require, which was your question. They would require, and Sean said it, some kind of supernatural thing, some kind of visitation of the Holy Ghost or whatever. I mean, but something beyond just normal, everyday, I believe in God. And science, you're not going to do it through science. You're not going to find Jesus through science. I'm sorry. And that's the thing I think most atheists want to explain to you, Antonio, is that all these things that you guys are doing when you go into your room and you're talking about all this sciencey stuff that you get all wrong, that's not going to help any atheist become a theist. It's never going to happen. That's why nobody ever does. And that's why
wait a minute.
Don't get much attention anymore.
Wait a minute. So are you trying to say that no person has came to a faith in God through scientific arguments?
No, not through your guys' scientific arguments.
What do you mean our guys' arguments?
There are other ways of articulating things. There are some scientific arguments out there, but you guys even butcher those. And I'm not trying to be disparaging, but when you listen to even True explain Tompkins' work, he butchers it to no end, right? That's what I'm saying. It's not so much that when Tompkins writes something, maybe somebody who doesn't know about genetics is going to buy into it and go, yeah, okay, I mean, I believe them. But the people that come in my program, that do have the expertise, they know that True doesn't know what he's talking about. And so I'm just telling you that you guys are not going to convince people to become non-atheist if they have any kind of scientific knowledge. It's very, very, very rare, I think.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on who you're talking to or what community you're in. Maybe not too many people in this community, maybe, or, but again, I think that just differs from person to person.
But that's who you're projecting to, right? I mean, you guys do these videos to the community. That's who listens to our stuff. It's not like you're on the radio, like an international TV program or something. It's just to the Great Debate community.
Okay, ultimately, if you're just talking about the whole intelligent design argument, that's a scientific argument. I mean, yeah, it can have theological implications, but it ultimately has nothing to do with trying to prove God. I mean, we do.
The people that do know science say it's not a scientific argument.
What do you mean, the people who know science? As if there are people. As if there aren't people who do know science.
All right, who in the Great Debate community that knows science, that has some kind of degree in science, accepts intelligent design?
What do you mean?
But I don't know very many.
Wait a minute. So now you're throwing degrees into this now?
Well, I mean, they know
science. This is the problem I have with talking to those who have issues with evolution. Y'all start throwing all these degrees and all these.
When you have a degree, you do demonstrate that you have a proficiency. You accept that, right?
Well, that's with anything, but that don't mean you can't talk about it. Otherwise, we couldn't get into philosophical.
Yes, you can definitely talk about it. But who do you think that has a proficiency in science that has demonstrated a proficiency in science in some regards? I may not have a degree, but I've demonstrated proficiency in science because I did graduate from nuclear power school, which is the toughest nuclear power engineering school in the world. So I've demonstrated at least I have a basic conception. I'm nowhere near the league of half the people in our community, but I have a basic understanding. Who do you think has a basic understanding in science that agrees with you guys?
Well, the thing is, what experts are you talking about? Because Because if you're talking about people like Doug X, Michael B.
No, in our community.
Stephen Miller, yeah,
in our community.
So you're talking about in this particular community?
Yes.
But I think you're being a little unfair because there are, if the argument is, are there people, the people who do agree with ID who have these degrees may not come to this community for two reasons. Number one, if you're an ID proponent and you're a biologist, you're probably it's not going to be great for your career.
But
I hate the conspiracy theory, but it won't be great for your career.
I'm asking about who in our community supports.
I disagree with that. Look at Jeffrey Tompkins, for example. He published a lot, and he's a creationist, so I don't think that's entirely accurate.
I'm not saying you can't publish stuff, but you're definitely not going to have a very long career in mainstream secular academia.
Okay, but
he has had a long career.
Hang on, Isaiah. These people are not in our community. Who in our community do you recognize that knows science agrees with anything that you guys have purported to be correct as far as scientifically correct? I mean, anybody that you can name, I will look at.
I just think that's totally irrelevant.
Understanding of science.
I just think that's totally irrelevant because the majority of
you're talking about science. You need to have people that know science.
Well, hold on, man. The majority of the people in this community don't have philosophy degrees, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk about philosophy.
I didn't say that you had to have a degree to talk about this. Again, you're not listening to what I'm saying, Antonio. I'm asking you, who has demonstrated they have a basic proficiency of science that agrees with some of the stuff that you guys purport over there?
So basically, you're trying to look for a popular opinion.
No, I'm asking you a simple question. There's a basic standard people will say of scientific literacy. Okay, if so, you say somebody is good at math, then I would expect them to be able to do basic algebra. Okay, maybe have proficiency of basic algebra. I am asking you, is there anybody in our community that has demonstrated a basic proficiency of science that agrees with you guys? That's all I'm asking. I'm not.
Basic proficiency of science. What do you mean, basic proficiency of science?
I don't know.
This seems like a trap question. I'm not gonna lie. This question's a trap question because again, just because I don't know someone who's proficient in something doesn't mean that it really has no bearing on whether it's true or not. Even though it may be more convincing that my position is hold, but I don't know. I think you're some sort of a trap.
Very simple. I'm only asking you for just a baseline of what you consider somebody to be scientifically informed that's agreeing with you guys, because all the people that are scientifically
that has a degree, because you did throw that out several times, who has a degree.
I'm not. You keep mentioning this degree. All I'm saying is people.
You're the first one who brought it up, Steve. You're the first one who brought it up.
Yeah, because when you said, right? Well, Steve, hold on. Let's back this up, Steve. When you said, is there anyone who's proficient in science that agrees? We did bring up Michael Behe, and then you limited it to the community, and then when you limited it to the community, then it was kind of like, well, hold on, now we're limiting it to the community. That it seems like almost an unfair question because there are people, and I'll say Steve, that there are multiple people out there with degrees who are proficient in science who do agree with you.
Just to clarify, if I can interrupt, Steve, just to clarify first. Steve did say when he first introduced the idea, he did say he was talking about the community. And then, and he did raise issue with degrees. And then, yes, there are people who were mentioned outside the community who have degrees that support ID. And then he clarified that, as reiterated, he had said earlier he was talking about within the community. So I object to the characterization that he was talking about, well, nobody with a degree supports ID. And then later changed to say, well, no, I'm talking about the community. He did say beforehand he was.
Yes.
I stand corrected. I want to make it clear. I apologize, Steve, because I mischaracterized you.
So I made it very clear. Thank you, Maktai. I made it very clear that I am talking about the community, and I'm not saying that you have to have a degree to be proficient. I'm just saying that if you have a degree, you've generally demonstrated proficiency. Okay? For the most part, people recognize people with a degree in the particular topic as proficient. They're not the only ones. Jay doesn't have a degree, but she's extremely proficient, right?
Proficiency. You can say that in anything.
Who do you think has demonstrated a proficiency, degree or not, that understands science, that agrees with some of the things that you guys say? Can you name somebody?
What do you mean? Who agrees with?
That
who agrees with us?
On the fusion site, that TAAG is a telomeric repeat rather than TTAGGG. That DNA degrades in water. That cytochrome C oxidized takes electrons from oxygen. These kind of things that anybody who knows science is wrong. Who's agreeing with you that knows a little bit about science? That's my question.
Well, how am I supposed to know? I haven't met all the people in this.
You can't name a single person, Antonio.
Well, hold on. That's not fair. Steve, come on. Stop.
Yeah, Steve. That's not fair.
Well, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Though I can name off the top of my head.
Wait.
One name.
I don't care. That's not the point, Steve. Come on. I haven't even ran into a ton of people in this G+ community. Most of the people I dialogue with most of the time or see in other hangouts are people like Hawktie, multiple personality here, True Empiricism, Nephilim Free, people like these. Like, it's not like I'm running into a bunch of other people who may or may not have actually entered into the midst of this debate.
So you're admitting that you don't know anybody in the community that agrees with you by default, whether you know them or not. You're admitting that you do not know anybody that would agree with you guys that know science, right?
I personally don't.
Okay, and that's fair.
But
I understand that. I agree with you on that.
But that doesn't mean anything, though.
Well, I think you can make a provisional induction from it that when you have people that do know a lot about science that are sitting there correcting you guys that actually teach these subjects.
That's a problem of induction. That's a logical fallacy, sir.
That's a provisional induction. There's perfectly nothing wrong with that. Again,
no, because you're making a really bogus inference from that. You can't make just this illogical inference from that. That's what you're trying to do.
But that's perfectly normal to make a provisional induction, Antonio. That's how humans operate. We do make provisional inductions. This is, again, a mistake that you guys would make by saying, well, you can't be inductive. Of course you can.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying you. That's not what I said. That is not what I said, dude.
Would you agree that if a source, like a news source, is continually making mistakes and continually wrong, that news source would probably not be a very good news source to get news from?
Absolutely.
Yes. This is the same thing. When we hear the science coming out of your guys' side, we are contingently saying, provisionally, that probably you guys are incorrect. And then we'll go look into it and find out that you guys actually are, or we just know and we verify it, right? We don't automatically assume that you're wrong because you guys have been wrong before. That would be a problem, right? That would be a fallacy of genetics, right? There'd be genetic fallacy. We can't just say, oh, they're wrong because, they're the climate hypothesis. But we can make a provisional induction saying, well, typically, historically, yeah, they've been wrong in everything on the science side. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly normal. That's not a problem of induction.
No, here's the problem I have with what you're saying. You're saying like, well, I haven't I don't personally know anybody who would like adopt to our side of where we stand on in certain scientific matters. So you make a provisional induction from that to we must not know what we're talking about, or we must be wrong or something.
Well, that would be a problem. If somebody says, okay, historically you guys have been wrong, therefore I know they're wrong when they say something else, that is a fallacy. We're not doing that. Okay? What we're saying is, if you had a mathematician that constantly got math problems wrong, you wouldn't go to him for math, right? You would provisionally say they probably don't know much about math, and you wouldn't think that they're correct when they're saying something. That doesn't mean they are. They could get something right. That would be a fallacy to say, oh, they're always wrong, therefore the next time they say something, it's going to be wrong. We can't say that. But we can take into account all the gaffes that you have made to say historically, yes, this has been a problem. And because you guys do not correct it. You guys, all you do is double down on it. And triple down on it.
But can I mention one thing, though, is that, I've talked in a lot of these debates and even have seen a lot of these things, and at no time does really anyone. There have been a few times, like even on BTN's show, Bible Thump and Wing, but not a lot of times where people kind of run out their credentials. I'm a biologist, I'm this. Sometimes they do, but most times they do not. And for instance, I don't know what any of you guys do for a living or what your qualifications are. So to kind of say that, do you know anyone who may be on your side? It's possible that Antonio can talk to someone every day who is a biologist who believes in an idea and may not know he's a biologist, because again, I talk to Antonio all the time, and he doesn't know what I do for a living. I don't know what he does for a living.
Multiple. I'm asking them.
But this is
misunderstanding. It is not what somebody does. I'm asking him a subjective opinion of who he thinks knows science. It's subjective.
It is this nonsense right here that led to this whole debacle and this whole just mudslinging left and right that I'm quite frankly tired of.
But this is not mudslinging. This is the heart of the issue, Antonio. This is
no,
what
it's not.
No, it's not. This is what you guys avoid having to discuss.
No, it's not.
Get to the bottom of
this is a side issue. This is a side issue, man.
Hold on for a second, guys. Hold on. I'll ask a quick question. I think we're kind of talking past one another. All right, Antonio, would you agree that Beckel knows the Bible very well?
Yes.
I would agree with that well. That Beckel knows the Bible very well.
Okay. Who would you go to for Bible study, me or Beckel?
I would go to Beckel.
Why is that?
Well, because I know that he knows the Bible. I'm not saying that you don't know it. You might know it. I don't know.
But you have a clear preference for Beckel.
Yes, because I'm aware of what he does know. I'm not aware of what you do or do not know. I don't know you like that.
So if I started quoting, let's say, Proverbs 3:5, and I said it was Proverbs 2:5, and that's an easy mistake to make. But then if I tell you that Ecclesiastics isn't in the Bible, you would kind of wonder if I'd ever read it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain conditions that, or certain indicators, you would say, to show that I don't have a certain proficiency in theology. Or I would say Christian theology. Let me make that caveat here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that, I think, is the crux of what Steve is getting at.
Exactly.
Because if I don't demonstrate to you that I am, one, a good Christian, and I know, the 10 Commandments, you are going to question my competency as a Christian, or even if I am a Christian. And then if I do claim, and you do believe that I am, and I tell you the Ecclesiastics and John, they're not in the Bible, you would definitely start to question if I had even opened the book. So, on the same token, when there are certain statements made by certain folks over and over again, we then question their competency in scientific literacy. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it makes sense.
So
and then I'll go to ask you this: You've had, and I see you hang out with True, and you and True had a solid discussion. Did he sound like he didn't know what he was talking about when you was talking to him?
No. Here's the thing that we'll say about True. True understands certain niche issues in science, but he does not possess a comprehensive understanding of science. That is the difference. That's like if you talk to my son about what his favorite toy is, he'll tell you Transformers. He won't tell you anything else other than the few Transformers that he knows. He has no idea about the anime, the movies, the history. He only knows what he specifically wants to hone in on. And that's
we're getting a lot of background noise from both points.
I'm sorry. Pardon me. Hold on. Let me mute. I apologize.
Okay. There you go.
So I mean that and just that right there, that dynamic, that goes on how you want to gauge it. I can't tell anybody that he don't know shit, because he does know a bit, because he has memorized certain pieces of cellular respiration. But as far as understanding science, it goes beyond a bit past simple memorization and reciting some of the same things over and over again. And that goes on the topic, or the statement I should say, that we had earlier when he brought up the issue, is that when I tell him that I'm past that, I've literally gotten a grade, a passing grade, more than a passing grade, on that particular topic. I've tested out of it and I'm done with it. And so asking me if I know it now, a year later, well, that's a one-trick pony. I have multiple tricks. So.
Right. So go back and look at this stuff and go, yeah, I can remember this stuff and relearn it pretty quickly because we had a baseline to draw from. I mean, not to get into too much of the detail, but I mean, Hawkeye's recent post, he did admit that he has actually done brain surgery on animals in type of a lab site type situation. He knows about these topics, and yet, True would be like, oh well, Hawkeye doesn't know what he's talking about. That's the height of arrogance. I mean, that is. I mean, who does that, Antonio? What rational person would say, oh yeah, this person who actually done these things, has taught these things, that has studied these things, it doesn't know what they're talking about compared to somebody who's never had a day in their life of college education.
Well, here's my whole issue with this thing. And I'm not saying y'all guys don't know y'all stuff. That's not what I'm saying at all. But let's take someone like William Lane Craig, for example, with this significant philosophy training, theology training, all this other stuff. But you have a ton of people on the internet here on G+, especially, who would critique his stuff, probably don't have any philosophy degrees whatsoever, and talk about, oh, he's wrong about this, he's wrong about this, and this, and this, and this. So, I mean, it will kind of go the other way around, too.
The people that do that, Antonio, most of them do have philosophy training. Fox in the Know. Alex Maphouse is a PhD in philosophy. Max hangs out. He has a master's degree in religious studies and he took a lot of philosophy courses. I mean, these people do know a lot about philosophy. And yeah, I've read
the majority of them don't.
And yet some of it I don't, right? Most of it.
The overwhelming majority of them don't.
But we say that, sure, there's a lot of atheists out there that just say, well, his argument's stupid, and
that's true.
They don't know what a true dichotomy even is. I'm willing to grant that there are stupid atheists that just don't like it.
they get shat upon pretty well. I mean, if somebody out there's going, yeah, well, you know, William Lane Craig's wrong just because he's an idiot. Yeah, nobody wants to hear that kind of diatribe. They want to hear what is wrong with the ontological argument, what is wrong with the Kalam, right? And we discuss. Anybody can discuss these things, Antonio, but that's not what we're referring to. We're talking about if you were to say Alex Malpass, who has a PhD in philosophy, if you were to say, you know what, yeah, Alex doesn't know what he's talking about, that would be absurd. I would never say William Lane Craig doesn't know what he's talking about. Even if I disagree with him, he definitely knows a lot about these topics. I think his conclusions are wrong, and that's where the discussion comes into play. Well, why do we think that way? But you cannot sit there and say anybody can say William Lane Craig is not an educated man. I don't think anybody in our community that would say that. I would think I'd be fine. It's hard pressed to think that anybody would say that.
That's not the claim I made.
Then what's the claim you're making then? I mean, people do discuss these things. We're allowed to discuss them, right? Even if we have training in philosophy or not. But you're saying, from your guys' camp, is saying that these people that come to my hangouts are not, they don't know what they're talking about. I get it all the time. Hogtie he wants to obstruct, he's an obstructionist. He doesn't want to talk about the issues. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Steve doesn't know what he's talking about. Fiona doesn't know what they're talking about. Drag doesn't know what he's talking about. Sam doesn't know what he's talking about. That's all we ever hear, that we're a bunch of liars and we don't know what we're talking about. And I'll accept it for me. I don't care. But I'm not going to accept it for people that I know something. That I'm like, holy God, I'm in awe of these people's education. I'd rather learn from them.
And so, you know what? I was going to mention the whole issue between True and Sam, but here we are once again getting into this whole just drama nonsense because
it's not really drama, Antonio.
Yes, it is.
The issue. Yes. It's like who has the scientific knowledge to be disseminating scientific information? It's not from your guys' side of the fence.
Yeah, because of what it seems to be is throwing around the fact that people have certain access to certain types of training, degrees. And
Antonio, can I just want to respond to this argument real quick. Sometimes this doesn't work in all settings. For instance, Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill Nye is he has an engineering degree. He's not actually a trained scientist. He speaks, and he is the science guy. And you know, I think Ken Ham even brought that out to a fact that he is not a trained scientist, but he's a scientific communicator.
He is a trained scientist. He actually has a patent for ballet slipper. He has a degree in mechanical engineering. He's a very respected person in the scientific community.
I wouldn't question his science. I wouldn't question his knowledge. I wouldn't question his knowledge on the science at all. And I personally never made the argument for him having an engineering degree that he didn't understand science. So I think it's really stupid to people who point that out as some sort of argument. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this is going either, but go ahead. I mean, we can. I don't mind letting multiple finish, but I don't know where it's going with it.
Well, no, because it's almost like we're kind of making the argument that there's some sort of foundation that you need to have to be able to speak intelligently about these things. And don't get me wrong, I actually agree with you, Steve. I think, I would rather trust, for instance, a medical doctor with medical decisions and a biologist with things in biology than a layman. I agree with that. But I don't agree it holds true in all situations. I think Bill Nye is one of the examples of someone who doesn't have a degree in, let's say, biology, but he, if you look at his shows and some of his talks, he talks about biology, he talks about earth science, he talks about all these things that he's not trained in, but he just has a bachelor's degree.
You're making a slippery slope, though, here. They may not be trained in it, but if they have a track record of being correct, I don't care what their background is. I don't care if they have a degree.
But now that's a different argument, though.
I have a track record of at least most of the time being mostly correct. I mean, there's times that people correct me, obviously, but I've never made a huge major gap that I'm aware of, okay? Not to the degree that's coming from the other side. So even though Bill Nye, remember, if he takes into some other subject like biology, as long as he's putting out correct information, that's what I'm looking at. And the side over there, he's not putting out correct information. That's just it. It's just not correct, period. Science is science, and the science you guys put out is wrong.
Well, see, I didn't even want to have to go here, but I have to mention this. This is the reason why, despite all this crazy debacle stuff, after everything that happened, True Empiricism agreed to drop all his terms and do the original debate that that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's too late for that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through this hassle with people. I mean, this is what Nephilim Free did. It's not worth it. It's not going to happen.
But that's what I'm saying, man. If you're saying it's not going to happen,
you saying it's not he's wrong on anything.
You saying it's not going to happen, but you're going to keep on saying, oh, he's just putting out wrong information. But you don't want to engage him, though.
Antonio, my debate. Antonio, a little bit of fairness here. My debate, Antonio, with ATP synthase and turbines, that was a subjective thing. That was not right or wrong science. That was actually meant to be, is it a valid thing? Does somebody have a subjective opinion? I wasn't making a scientific argument. I was making a subjective argument. Okay? So I'm not talking about that. That has nothing to do with if science is right or wrong. ATP synthase and turbines does not matter when you say DNA degrades in water. That is wrong, period, across the board. It doesn't matter in 5th grade, 4th grade, PhD, 2 PhDs, 5 PhDs. It's wrong. And the whole thing about the cytochrome C oxidase, he was wrong. A rational mind and myself pointed out that oxygen doesn't get oxidized. He may have made a mistake. That's fine. But he also didn't correct it. And he had the audacity to say that Steve was wrong and Rational was wrong. That's the point where we jump in and say, look, quit saying that we're wrong when you make the mistake, and we're correcting you. Because all you're doing is trying to save face in front of people that don't know what the hell you're talking about because you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
So let me get this straight. So you're not interested in actually having a discussion with him. It just seems to me that all you're interested in doing is just watching him do Hangouts and waiting for him to screw up on something. That seems to me all you're interested in doing.
There's some truth to that, but I don't have to wait very long. He screws up a lot, and that's what's funny. That's why we do. This is why I do this. It is for comedic effect. I am an My channel is under entertainment. Okay, but it's correct. My science we have on my channel is correct.
I can see that.
But True makes so many fundamental mistakes, dude. We don't have to wait very long. And anybody would like to have a discussion with him, but not in any form that's going to be moderated by somebody else because they don't trust these guys, right? They're certainly not going to go to his room because all he does is mute people or their volume, eject them. We know this game. You know it as well as I do. He even says it. On my channel, he's welcome to come in, and he never has, Antonio. Not once. Because he's going to be asked questions by people like Sam on these subjects that he wants to quote-unquote get technical with. Because he says, I have no one to speak technical with. Well, I have them in my room. That's what I have my room for. I collect these people that know this shit, right? And he can come in and talk technical with them. He can talk with me about it, too. I'm not going to ignore him. You know, he sits there and says, oh, well, Steve wants to, I'm welcome to come in his room, but just to talk to other people, and he's not going to talk to me. That is not what my post said. My post said he's welcome to come in, but if he wants to talk to me, he's also going to have to talk to other people. And he misread it like he misreads everything.
Well, he thinks you're just going to dominate the room and not really let him have a fair chance to speak.
I will have a clock. I'll give him as much airtime as everybody else.
Well, hold on for a second. Antonio, when I came into the room, did I address you at any given time?
What's that?
The room in this room initially after Darwin's deity left. I came in to speak with you. Did I say anything to True?
Well, no. I saw what you said up in the chat that you was gonna wait till DD leaves and then came in here, and then when you came in here while True was here, I don't recall you speaking to him.
And I didn't for a reason.
But
because I knew
I will say that the only reason why you spoke to him is because he had some concerns he wanted to get off. But as far as like addressing him initially, no, you didn't.
Well, that's the thing, because I didn't want to bring nonsense on your channel, and the fact that you had to come in and keep interrupting me to get at a point because he was angry, and at the same time disrespecting you and your channel, I find that just egregious. Like there's no other word I can put for it, and I specifically did not engage him initially because of that. So when we're talking about why he gets made a lost cow, it's because of his behavior. Because I don't know how long you watched YouTube, me and Beckel have gone at it. Like Beckel has actually physically threatened me. It was a private hangout, and we joke about it now. But I pissed Beckel off. I've said some mean shit to him. He said some mean shit to me. But we know now that we have a mutual respect for one another. That if one of us is crossing a line, we'll say something. And so when we say something, that's okay. That's the break. You need to back up for a second and calm down and back it up. Drew does not have that type of relationship with anybody. Not anybody that's been around for a while. I'll say that. And so that's one of the main issues, is that I will let him give as much time as he wants to speak I will extend him the respect that he deserves, but he cannot reciprocate it. That is the fundamental issue that I have with you. Nothing he says about science, I don't give a two shits about, because whatever, people get shit wrong. But it's his immature behavior is what annoys people, and that's what makes people not want to talk to him.
And that's why he doesn't get many people that join his Hangouts anymore, Tony. That's why he gets so many dislikes. I mean, I brought all my viewers over to your channel right now. That's why you have so many people watching.
Which I appreciate that, by the way.
What's that?
Which I do appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm not running from anybody, right? I would love to have these types of discussions, but it's not going to be on their terms, because we've already demonstrated what happens when Trump is in a non-moderated room. Either when he's in his own room or he's in your room or anybody else, he cannot control himself. On my room, I run it one of the most fair Hangouts around. That's why my room has become very popular lately. Even when Sean came in, he was treated fair. You've come in, you treated fair. Even Steve Brown comes in, he was treated fair. All these guys are treated fair. The only person that once said he wasn't was Tommy, and Tommy knows he was. He was a little bit butthurt, but we treat Tommy fair.
No, I will say this. Hold on. I will say this. One thing though, recently, because I was on True's channel before, and now I've come back again. It's a totally different environment, though. He does let you speak. There's no more muting. There's no more. It's a totally different environment, and it's very conducive. So I understand there may have been some perception in the past, but I've been on, and again, I'm agnostic, and I do not agree with a lot of the things that are said, and we debate all the time about it. So,
and some of the ways, and I think that's a great.
But
point.
I will testify to that yes, it's a different environment now.
Yeah, and I would not even disagree with y'all entirely. That there are certain times to where he may mute too much or overtalk people. Even he admitted that himself. But as multiple said right here, then there's been a very fluid discussion, and it's not happening as much. So I like to think y'all should be give the man a chance.
Well, I'm willing to give
something real quick.
If he's willing to go to Steve's channel or my channel, then fine.
I want to ask Antonio something, because do you remember back when, Antonio, when True's excuse for not coming to my channel was that I supposedly was going to bring him over so I can get views and listeners and all that other stuff? I am dominating him 3-1 right now, across the board in every metric. His channel is slowly dying. Why would I still want him to come to my channel if I'm looking to get views from him? It's the other way around. He probably needs my channel more than the other way around. I could talk about tons of different subjects. We talk about all kinds of different things. We have all different types of discussions. His is very, very the same. I mean, if he given a Hangout, he's going to bring up ATP mayonnaise at some point.
But that's the problem right there. You're saying you got this dominance over him in 3-1. Like, what is that even about, Steve? It's like you think you have some sort of need to compete with him or something.
I tell you, you can. Do you not listen to what I'm saying? This is the problem that I run into. You're taking something and you're running with it in a different direction. My comment was his excuse for not coming over was that he had the views and that I was basically using him to try to get views and subs and stuff like that. He will have more subs than me because he's been around a lot longer, but my growth rate is more than him. But I already have 3 times, 4 times his viewers now. So why is that an excuse for him not to come over to my room now? That's my question is, how is that an excuse when then I've already got the viewers? What is preventing him from coming into my room and having these technical discussions with Sam or with CRISPR or with Rational? Why does he want to?
Well, because from his personal opinion, he thinks that you're not gonna really be fair to him, and you're gonna try to really. Now, you just told me that like you would have a time clock and let him speak, but there was like beforehand there was nothing about a time clock said before today.
And I didn't know that was an issue. I mean, I've let everybody else speak in my room. People have a lot of airtime. So I didn't think that would be an issue. But if he thinks that's an issue, he can get a clock. I don't care. I can get a clock. Whatever. That's not hard to do. Use a chess clock. But usually the rule of thumb is you don't need a blowbeat for more than 2 minutes unless you're Jade, because she's Jade. But other than that, you don't need a minute like that long.
I'll put it like this. I think he'll be willing to go into your room if you'll be willing to go into his room as well.
No,
It's a two-way street.
See, that's the problem. That's the nonsense.
It's a two-way street, dude. It's a two-way street. Come on.
He has demonstrated he cannot run a room. Nobody wants to go into his room. If he wants to ever talk about these things, then he knows where to find us. Okay? Nobody's going to his room because his room is dying because he doesn't know how to run it.
Steve, didn't you go into his rooms at one point?
Oh yeah, quite frequently, and I've only left on my own accord twice.
Okay, so then how many times has he been on your channel to reciprocate that? That's kind of what that's what's being illustrated here. He's setting up this standard for folks and talking about expectations. Yet people will bend over backwards in some cases to try and appease whatever standards he concocts. But yet he won't fulfill his end of that bargain, and that's what I find issue with, and that no one's really addressing but us.
And also, I don't have him blocked on anything. Antonio's not blocked from my live feed. He's not blocked from my comment section. He's not blocked from my Hangouts. I'm blocked across the board with him. So who's running from whom?
It just seems to me you're not being charitable here because you're saying that.
Wait, I'm not being charitable? How do you figure this, Antonio?
Well, because you're sitting up here talking about, yeah, he can come to your channel, but if you come to his, then you don't think anything's gonna become productive from it, and he feels the same way about you, but you criticize him for it.
I've tried. The difference is I've actually done it. I've been in his room numerous times, Antonio. He has not been in once in my room. That is a huge disparaging thing right there. He cannot sit there and say that he knows what it's going to be like because he's never been in my room. He has nothing to judge it by. I do know what it's like. You saw when I went into his room. You saw the last time. He just cannot he cannot have a civil conversation. In my room, I can control it, and I can have him try to have a civil conversation with people that want to talk to him, like Sam and CRISPR and Rational. These people have been dying to ask him questions about human chromosome number 2. I wanted to make this happen. Why is he running? He's the one running scared because he thinks a freaking telomeric repeat is TAAG, dude. Go look that up. That's not that hard. Go look up telomeric repeat. That's not a telomeric repeat. He got it wrong. He's supposedly the expert.
You know what we talked about. You know what we talked about in the Hangout the other day. Like when I don't know if it was your room or someone else's room in your general circles of people, but Rational Theist was up in there, and did you hear his comments on that? Like it seemed like Rational Theist was getting treated pretty badly.
I don't think so. Rational Theist actually likes my room. He comes in there quite often. He actually commends me how well I run my room. He knows when he gets out of line. He knows there's a point where he becomes a contrarian and a troll, and he's probably going to get booted. He knows that's going to happen. He wants that to happen. Yeah, Matt and I go way back. I've known Matt for a very long time, dude. And he's more than allowed to come in my room. I actually like a lot of times when Rational comes in, but he knows where the line is. But so does everybody else that comes in my room. When you become a contrarian or you become a troll, it's time to move on, and you can come back tomorrow. They're never permanently banned, unless they're somebody like who actually is a permanent troll, like Moses or somebody.
So let me get this straight. You have no problem with him coming into your room, but the whole issue about the one-on-one discussion is off, even if it's on a neutral channel.
Yeah, he hasn't even demonstrated he's worthy enough to have a one-on-one discussion. I mean, I want this. If he ever comes to my room, I want people to actually be able to get to the nitty-gritty and get to these top complex things and get to the technicalities that he wants to talk to. That's not going to happen with a one-on-one. I want him to come in and show his knowledge to people that actually do know these things. That's all I'm asking. Why would that be me? I'm not claiming to have knowledge of these topics. I'm claiming to somebody to be a science aficionado in some ways. I like science. But he needs to come in and talk to the people that do know these things. And he's refusing to do so. And do you know why, Antonio? Because he doesn't know these things.
Wait a minute. People like Rational Mind, he has had chats. He has had at least one chat with. He had a chat with Drag.
In his channel. Do you understand that? He can control the conversation, and he shuts down Rational Mind all the time and keeps on saying Rational Mind doesn't know what we're talking about. He won't be able to do that on my channel. He won't have control, and that scares the shit out of him, dude. It scares him.
I'm not with you on that one, man.
Well, I'm telling you, brother, I will stake everything I have on it. He is scared to go into a non-moderated forum where he cannot focus on ATP mayonnaise or electron change transport, which is nonsense. Because, Antonio, let me ask a direct question, my friend. Why does it matter if somebody knows about ETC? You learn that in basic biology. Who cares about ETC? Does it make a difference in your life if you know cytochrome C oxidase or not? Seriously? It makes no difference, dude. He only wants to throw this out because they sound important. It sounds like they're big words. Oh, I can say NADH dehydrogenase. I can say, flavin monodenucleotide. Whatever the hell he wants to throw out.
Wait a minute.
He loves these big words.
Are you trying to just say that he's just throwing around big words?
He jargon bombs like you wouldn't believe. Go back and watch every one of his videos, Antonio. He says the exact same thing verbatim every single time. He's got it memorized as a script.
All right, so, okay, so he just throws around big words. Yes, he makes mistakes, and he's admitted he's made mistakes. But I don't think he's just throwing around big words just for the sake of it. Because, I mean, let's be honest, Steve. You throw around a lot of big words, too. Like, when you first told me about Pilopithecus catalonicus, you have a pretty sizable vocabulary yourself. Like, I wouldn't just presume that you don't.
I'm going around and say I got a big vocabulary. You asked me what the last common ancestor was, and I told you it was Pilopithecus catalonicus.
Right.
Out there chucking, boss.
That was only one. That was only one part of the point, man. But I'm just saying that you got pretty sizable vocabulary yourself when we're talking about things like evolution, things like I don't know, like cosmology. Because you said that was one of your top fields, cosmology, right?
I like a lot of aspects of science, dude.
Yeah.
But I don't throw words out there to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. How many times has ever gotten one hangout, one, without mentioning synthase? And he got that wrong too. He's like, Steve doesn't know the difference between ATP synthase and synthesis. And I'm the one that pointed out to him the difference. I'm the one that pointed out to him that not all types of ATP synthesis are ATP synthase. You can get other ways of creating ATP. He wasn't aware of that, dude.
The thing is, when we say he's jargon bombing, I actually I made a transcript of a conversation he's had on a few of his debates, and now more people are starting to do it. Once you actually type out what he says, it does not make grammatically it's not right, and as far as the semantics of the conversation, it does not make sense.
Yeah,
and
that was you, Dragon. I saw that. That was actually pretty good. You're right. Did you put it on a video? I saw somebody put it on a video, and it was actually pretty good.
And that's what. And instead of me just saying, well, he's just using big words. Well, anyone can use big words, but if you're trying to explain something to somebody, especially a process, and you're just throwing in random words that are somewhat but not really associated with what you're talking about, people are going to question your level of knowledge. And I mean, that's innate to all of us, that we're going to question each other's knowledge when we're trying to discuss a topic. And so when True is trying to explain, I think it was it was a conversation he had with Redline, and I think he asked Redline if he had any training or any education in biology, which is hilarious. And so he starts trying to describe the type of bonding that needs to happen, something very basic in chemistry. He gets it wrong, but it's not a fact that he gets it wrong in the sense that, well, he's just gotten these confused. He's associated a quality with two different types of bonding that shouldn't be associated. Covalent and ionic bonding are completely different. And when you see that in the conversation and when I type it out, that he uses the attribute of one and applied it to both of them. So stuff like that, that makes us both question his level of knowledge, and that kind of would indicate that he is trying to inundate someone who has indicated that they don't have formal training with jargon, so that they'll, I guess, eventually just cower to him.
And Antonio, exactly. And what Isaiah just put aside, when they were running, when Rational Mind, I think it was Rational Mind, maybe it was Bruhit for Isaiah, I don't remember, any of them, but when they're talking about the cytochrome C, right, and they're talking about how it's based upon phylogeny, how changes are in the structure, he went back to ETC, because there is cytochrome C in ETC, but that's not what they were talking about. They weren't talking about what cytochrome C does or cytochrome C oxidase does. That wasn't the argument. The argument was how cytochrome C changes among species, and True was lost. He didn't understand the argument being presented, so all he could do was fall back on, oh yeah, well, in electron train transport in complex 4, cytochrome C oxidase will take the electrons from cytochrome oxidase and give them to the oxygen. It's like, who the freaking cares? That's not what the argument was about. Actually, he even got that wrong. He even said originally, again, oxygen donated electrons, which we called him out on, and he didn't understand why.
Well, gentlemen, I really hate to cut this short, but I just got an important call. I absolutely cannot miss this.
To another topic. time. I'm gonna go back to my hangout here at 5 o'clock in a half hour.
Yeah. Yeah, but in any case, I appreciate you gentlemen coming by, and I appreciate the you sending me the audience.
Yeah, you're welcome to my hangout too. You always say, well, why do I invite you? Because you want to talk about this stuff. You always say, why are these people avoiding us? This is all high school stuff. But I invite you every time. Just come on in. Jeez, I mean, you might actually enjoy yourself. I mean, we have a lot of people from your side that come to my hangouts, believe it or not. Pathfinder comes over every so often. Odian came over, and he doesn't even go back. So,
all right.
There's a reason for that, man. You like my hangouts? They're pretty good. Okay.
All right, man.
All right, peace,
but anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. I gotta go.